Now, every so often we hear from PBHP members who have used a whole food plant-based diet to revolutionise their personal health. Perhaps they were vegetarian before and they shifted to being plant-based, resulting in measurable benefits. But what we haven't done on the podcast before is talk to someone who is still in that process and really got a sense of how challenging it can be when you've had the wake-up call with regard to your health and you want to take action. You're motivated, you know what you need to do. So what's the problem? Well, today's guest is PBHP member Neil Rutherford. Thanks for joining us, Neil. Now, you got in touch with us a few months ago offering to tell us your story. And we said, yes, please. So now here we are. And where would you like to start? Because perhaps tell us more about the earlier you before you decided you needed to make changes and what it was that happened to take you on this journey.
Okay, great. Thanks. And it's great to see you both. Thanks so much for having me on as a guest and give me the opportunity to tell my story. So hopefully it can inspire others. Obviously, I've put a lot of thought to this. So thinking back to my early years, I was a happy and healthy teenager, but I started drinking alcohol age 14, like a lot of people did. In the area where I grew up, I was a big drinker, so it was too much too often from that early age. So that continued through my teenage years. It never held me back. So, I got my grades at school. I went to university. University was like a license to drink even more and up my consumption. Particularly in my last year, I had a bad football injury where I injured my knee. I found that was a trigger and a situation where I found myself drinking even more. As I came out of university, I started a career in recruitment. And in many ways, that was an extension of university with the drinking culture. So alcohol was celebrated and we had client lunches, we had lots of drinks after work, midweek. And so that lifestyle just continued throughout my 20s. I got married and divorced in that period as well. It was a marriage sort of built on alcohol. And it was as I came into my 30s when the toll of the lifestyle, obviously working in an office, drinking too much. I was a heavy drinker, so I was drinking every other day. And those days in between, I'd be binge eating on UPF, the ultra processed food. So lots of takeaway pizzas, lots of fast food burgers. And that sort of culminated in me struggling with obesity for a lot of my later 20s and into my 30s. It came to a point where my health really started to struggle. The point where I realised there needed to be a change was when I was diagnosed with gout and diabetes and fatty liver chronic disease as well. Since then, it's been a journey of transformation and change, with my health as where I am today.
Was it a shock to you, as somebody who sounds like you played sport when you were younger and things, that you actually started to struggle with your weight?
Yes, I think looking back, I was a skinny teenager. I was very active. And I think by having that knee injury and then stopping moving more and being more active in my 20s, alongside working in an office and increasing my, drinking and bad eating habits, the weight for me went on very quickly. And I tried in that period of my 20s and 30s, every diet under the sun. But it was never a lifestyle change. So it was very much a yo-yo. I would lose a few stone, put it back on.
We've talked about weight, and obviously alcohol, it has a lot of calories in it. And so I wanted to know a bit more about what brought you to focus on that first as something you needed to change. And you mentioned gout. So tell us about that and what that actually meant for you. What symptoms did you get?
When I first experienced it, it was like nothing I'd had before. It was extremely painful. It was just a pain in my big toe, but it was a pain where I literally couldn't move or put any weight on it, even just to get out of bed. It's excruciating. And I was given medication to help with that. And so it lasted sort of a few days until it calmed down. And then I just carried on as I was until it happened again. And until it sort of seemed to get worse, it was becoming more frequent, and the intensity and length of suffering with it was becoming longer, to a point where I was offered a different medication that I was told would be a lifetime medication, which I'm currently on, but I'm in the process of actually cutting down on that. And again, we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
And did you make that early connection between alcohol and gout? Or did someone tell you about that?
It was doing the research around it. So alcohol's part of it, but obviously diet's a big part as well. For me, a lot of the negative eating patterns I had were around alcohol. As I mentioned, I was a heavy drinker, drinking every other day. And so the days in between were often hangover food when I wasn't making healthy food choices. So it was that combination of, if I could tackle stopping drinking, I would sort of buy myself that time to start focusing on some healthier food choices. Even with the exercise as well, it's, again, when you're hungover, you're less inclined to go to the gym or even go for a walk. So I found like stopping alcohol was the first key for me to unlock the rest of it.
Right. But it isn't easy for, the average UK man to stop drinking, and particularly maybe one who's got links with their job to a drinking culture. And you know how people are going to react when you say, no, I'm not drinking, and you can get away with it maybe on one or two occasions, but after a while, people will start to question your choice if that's what the people around you are doing. So what's your experience, particularly around alcohol? What happened?
Sure, that's been a hard journey, and to be honest, from my first dry January, I actually did the first one back in 2013, so just over 10 years ago, to now, I've seen a lot of change, but it is still very much in a minority. There's probably, of people I know, I'm probably in the 10% where I'd say 90% of people do still drink, and I think that's been the challenging aspect for me, because it is so ingrained in our society, whether we're happy, whether we're sad, whether we're depressed, whether we're bored. I think, there seems to be, alcohol seems to be the go-to for a lot of people. And that's just ingrained in our culture, not just in this country. It is a global issue, I think. But particularly growing up here in the 90s, drinking was very much celebrated in a lads culture environment. And I think it's not until you grow older yourself and a little bit wiser, and maybe your life values change in terms of what's important. But yeah, I think sort of looking back, that dry January was an important step for me, because it bought me some space and time to tell people I was doing a challenge. And I'd signed up and I was raising some money for cancer at the time. So even though people were trying to encourage me to drink within that month, it sort of gave me a reason why I wasn't. And that was a springboard looking back to giving up. That was an important first step.
Obviously, you can do a dry January and you can cut out alcohol for a month. And then some people say that what that does is they go back to alcohol, but they've lost some of their tolerance. So maybe they drink less, or they've learnt to alternate between alcohol and a non-alcoholic drink. But you've gone on to stop alcohol altogether. So I wanted to ask why you think for you that was so important to stop altogether. There was a book I once read by Adrian Childs, which was called The Good Drinker, which was about, you don't need to stop alcohol. You just need to stop those drinks that are too much, the drinks you don't enjoy. And that was a proposed way forward by him. So I'm more interested to know why it was a hard stop on alcohol for you.
I'm really pleased you asked that question, because it's such a hotly debated topic in my world, talking about moderation. So as I said, it was a long journey for me. After dry January, I did that a few times, but always went back to it a lot harder. I tried Sober October. And then I finally discovered a program called 1 Year No Beer back in 2018, which was co-created by Andy Ramage. That was a challenge to have a year without drinking, with my first experience of group coaching, and having some daily emails and having a group of other like-minded individuals where you posted your days and there was some accountability. And that was fantastic. And I completed that year, and it felt like a huge achievement. And at that point, though, I hadn't actually changed my mindset still around drinking, even though I had lots of benefits from that year off. And I wanted to still try moderation because, again, everyone I knew still drank. And I thought, well, if I haven't drank for a year, I must be cured if I was a problem drinker. I tried just to have a few drinks. But for me, I like to talk about middle lane drinking. So if a zero is someone that doesn't drink at all, never has drunk, or has stopped drinking now, like I have. And if a 10 is someone who is physically dependent on alcohol, then all in the middle, you've got, I would have been a lane 9, whereas my wife is a lane 1. So she is just someone that can have 1 or 2 and never has more. For me, I tried moderation for 3 years. And each time I would have many breaks within that, but it just got to a point where my drinking was getting worse and worse. So I felt like I tried everything to the point where just stopping alcohol altogether was actually easier. That was 2 years ago now, and I haven't looked back since then.
So to people listening, is that what you would essentially recommend, stopping altogether?
It's not for me to tell anyone what to do. That's it. It's. I'm trying to show people that if anyone is, struggling with their drinking or their health, there is another way. And I think the great things about things like dry January, it gives people a chance to try a month off, because a lot of people would start with that. There's not a lot of people that would overnight just go from drinking to never at all again. So after that, some people try like a 3 months. If they've enjoyed the month and they want to go a bit longer. Then the year, I think the good thing about a year off is it gives you the full seasons, lots of occasions, like your first Christmas not drinking, going to a wedding not drinking, and sort of building all those hurdles and giving you those experiences. Some people will try moderation and fail, like me, and decide, actually, I just want to not drink at all for good. Other people might be out there and they will say, well, yeah, I can have one or two, and good for them if they manage to learn that. They were probably somewhere else in that middle lane. But from my experience, it's not about what you give up, it's what you gain. And there's so much more to life that I've found, particularly in this second year of not drinking. It's been transformational with my health and my life and my family. So I'm very passionate about it. And I just believe everyone should try it. You've got nothing to lose, and just see how it feels.
Most men who stop drinking, unlike smoking, where people always complain about putting on weight, most men who've been sort of drinking pints and pints, when they stop drinking, they lose weight. Has that been the case for you?
Yeah, so that's been the first health benefit of losing 3 stone in weight. I'm still on that journey. So, I've still got another 4 or 5 to get to my goal weight of where I was when I was 21. But there's no pressure around that. That will happen in good time, I'm sure, if I keep on doing what I'm doing. And the smoking, I did used to smoke as part of the culture. But as soon as I had kids, I found that the easiest thing to give up, because I had a very strong why. And I think once the nicotine addiction's worn off after a couple of days, that's just a habit change. The drinking, I did have the year off 5 years ago, and then I went back to it. But what I found this time around is there's so many alcohol-free beers out in the space now. It makes it really easy to go out and socialise with people and still have a few beers. They can just be alcohol-free ones. So, I even go and watch Tottenham play a couple of times a year. That's my football team. And they sell Heineken Zero there. So I can still feel like I'm part of the group. And then I wake up the next day, I'm not hungover, and I can spend the Sunday with my boys. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah. All right. So gaining lots there through stopping alcohol. But we're equally interested in how this second part of your journey, this going plant-based, came to have such an appeal for you. So for many, the idea of plant-based diet, even when they are told about the health benefits that might bring and what they might gain, it's just too extreme, even more extreme than stopping alcohol, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, even when I've gone out for a curry with the guys, they're more accepting of me having an alcohol-free beer now. But when I'm ordering a vegetable curry, there seems to be more resistance around that. And I think that's where they are in the change at the moment in society. But it's heading in the right direction, hopefully.
Earlier on in the interview, you've told us that you had this wake-up call. You developed gout. You had diabetes as well. And you knew instinctively that you needed to cut down on alcohol or stop alcohol in order to try and reverse those conditions, or at least, not suffer so seriously from them. How did that come to extend into going plant-based? Where did you even hear about that? Was it within your family, or where did the idea come from?
I was lying down on one of my sort of last worst gout attack when I couldn't walk properly for a month. And I was just researching online what's the optimum diets for health. It was like a light bulb moment. I came across a Michael Greger talk that food is medicine, and it just resonated with me so strongly. I liked how he delivered it as well, with an element of humour in his style. It just ticked all the boxes for me. I think the fact is he was highlighting that there's a list of all these chronic diseases, of which I had about half at that point. And diabetes scared me, by the way, because my ex-wife's dad and also my mum's old boyfriend both lost limbs to diabetes. I know that's like the worst case stage it can get to. So I was really motivated to change when I had that, and I was in pain with the gout, and it felt like it was heading in one direction. And here was a doctor saying, just by changing your diet and eating more plants, you can solve all of this. So I was on, you can have all these different medications for all these different conditions, but essentially a lot of it is linked in. So much of it is your diet. And I was just really interested in that. I was never like a huge meat eater. Like I probably did eat a lot of processed meats, but I think it kind of gave me a foothold in, I liked my my eggs and my cheese, but it gave me a foothold into sort of starting vegetarian as a starting point. And then it was like progress, not perfection. So with alcohol, where it's a bit all or nothing, there's no moderation for me. With the plant-based stuff, I just felt like by starting and being curious around it and doing more research, and then finding there's lots like this podcast, and there's lots of ones I started to listen to, like Rich Roll, Plant Strong, it's another one from the States, Mastering Diabetes, guys that have got a great book as well. Then I read Chef AJ's book, Unprocessed. I think once you start to find something that resonates with you and you're curious about it, I must have read 20 books around the subject now. My wife's always joking, there's always a new book coming through from Amazon. And just because I'm interested and passionate about it. So it's definitely just starting, to think about what you're eating, what changes you can make. And that's still something I'm improving even now. I'm hoping to do Veganuary with my wife and my family as a challenge from January. So that's something I'm still looking to improve with.
Great. And I think me and Daisy are both probably thinking the same thing at this point, which is we're so glad that the internet, Googling delivered on this, because so often people will end up going in a completely different direction. And you sort of say to them, how did you find that? And they say, I was doing some research, and it will come up with something that's just the opposite of a whole food plant-based diet. You've said you're still on a journey, and you're going to do the Veganuary, and you're going to try and draw your family into it. Have you ever felt like giving up completely? Because we always talk about the fact that we're on this journey and you're getting the feedback, it's all positive. But have you had any sort of low points where you felt like, actually, this isn't for me?
I had so many challenges with stopping drinking as that first step, because that was such a long journey for me. Even when I did 1 year no beer, I was like reset about 100 times. So they were getting in touch with me to check in, am I okay? And it was just, you'd make it to a certain amount of days and then there would be another trigger. But it was all learning, and it was all building the list of things that can happen. I think what gave me the confidence with the plant-based, because I started the plant-based as I quit alcohol for good 2 years ago, in terms of my journey with it, my curiosity with it. And I think having gone through that transformation, you have an urge to try and be your best self and to be healthy and to really focus on nutrition. So if you really research it and understand it, you then understand the benefits of plant-based. And to be honest, there's so many new foods I'm eating now that I wasn't before, because it's making room for those on your plate, and then there's less room for the other stuff. And again, it's focusing on the cool things you can eat, like avocado and sourdough, and I sprinkle on my nuts and seeds. Absolutely love it. And I was eating eggs on toast, every day for 20 years before that. I still do occasionally, and that's why I say I like plant-based, the phrase. I can aim for vegan, and I'm probably 90% with that. And there is another angle with that, obviously, coming from the planet and the animals, and when I've just been focusing it from a health perspective so far.
Neil, you make it sound really easy, actually. So be honest, what have been the hard parts?
Yeah, I think having started with the alcohol-free first and proving to myself I could make those changes, you become really passionate about being your healthiest version of you, and nutrition being a big part of that. I was just ready to make that diet change. So I'd already tried every diet, as I said before. So when I did the first year of not drinking, I was doing the keto diet, which is great for weight loss, but it wasn't sustainable. I think that's why, because I tried every type of diet and always failed before, the plant-based made sense to me in terms of making a lifestyle change, and that's something I could do forever, and it would be healthy for me. At the same time, there's some things that I still struggle with a little bit. So like eggs and cheese are probably the last two things to go consistently. And I find it's about finding good foods that you can replace those with. So I'm loving my avocado and toast. I'm more into hummus and olives now instead of the cheese. And it's more about finding those places where you go out, sometimes where you eat. So locally, they do a great vegetarian breakfast that I might have an occasional egg once in a while. But if I go a bit further to my next village, there's a new place called The Greenhouse, which is a vegan restaurant, and they do scrambled tofu. I was listening to your episode the other day about that. And I think it's about making those efforts, particularly if you're reaching out to find places that are more in line, with the way you're trying to eat, because they are out there.
You've obviously had to go to the doctors a few times with these new conditions that you didn't have before. Have you had support from the NHS, which integrates lifestyle change?
I felt like I was going to the doctor all the time. I was referred to the Tier 3 program. So this is after you've tried all the sort of support groups and diets. The good thing about the Tier 3 program is that, so it was a 6-month health coaching course. So it was more exposure to coaching for me. I must say it did take me to get the third coach because there was a lot of changes within the staffing in that time. But the third coach that I got for the last couple of months of the course happened to be plant-based herself. And I really connected with her. And that helped me because from the first couple of coaches, they were asking me things like, where do you get your protein from? All the common questions you get when you're making this transition. That was good because it helped me being accountable to someone and sharing my challenges on the journey with someone else, and having that monthly check-in with someone was really helpful. The thing is, had that not worked, stage 4 was, being considered to having the weight loss surgery, which really scared me. It's something that I didn't want to do, and I decided not to do it, even though that could have been an option because I'd ballooned to about 22 stone at that point. But that was a motivation to, as I say, I now lost 3 stone, well on the way to 14. Yeah, in terms of support from the doctor, having that access definitely helped, I'd say.
Neil, it's great to know that you did get support, but it sounds to me like you're someone that's just taken matters into their own hands and actually looked into the evidence and done your research and making those changes. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefits you felt so far in going plant-based?
Absolutely. It's been life-changing, transformational from a health point of view. I get my markers done via bloods every few months. And so just this month, my HbA1c had dropped down from 55 at its worst to 42, which is, right on the edge of pre-diabetes now.
That's brilliant. That's excellent.
My gout's in a fantastic place. I haven't had a gout attack in the last 2 years. And again, the reading on that's fine. I've just been for my liver scan. And again, they said that's been a massive transformation and turnaround. So that's all looking good now. As I say, the weight's coming off has probably helped with that and being a big part of it. So from the health side, it's been fantastic. And then in work and in life, it's been transformational with my family and my relationships. And I feel like I'm on a new journey. I've just turned 44, and this now feels like the second half of my life, how I want to be living it.
Oh, it's brilliant. I feel like clapping. I'm getting all emotional. Tell us about the family changes. Are your family on board? You mentioned it had a positive impact on them.
Yeah. So first of all, shout out to my son William because he loves his podcast too. He's 7, and my youngest is Eddie, who's 5. I met my wife Irina 10 years ago. We've been married for the last 8 years. She's been amazing in helping me go through this change as well, and it's just given me a really strong reason why. Because my motivation is I want to be the best possible husband and the best possible dad. And I'm finding now, having removed alcohol and going on this health journey with the plant-based stuff, I'm just really connecting with them. I'm really present, and we're just really grateful and enjoying our time together. It's nice for them to be able to see the benefits. I've just started coaching my son's football team this year as well, which, to be honest, the volunteering within your local community is great and is giving me a lot of meaning and purpose in life. And then obviously we'll talk about, the changes I've made with training to become a life coach as well.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about that. So obviously this has had a huge impact on your health, but now it's also having a possible impact on your career. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I'd worked in recruitment for 20 years, and that's all I've ever done. It's been good to me. It's provided well. But I've hit that midlife point where, again, by making these health changes, you free up a lot more thinking time. You don't realize how much time is lost to when you're drinking or hangovers and thinking about not drinking. And by removing that, it's like changing the radio channel. And then you're starting to think about other positive things that you can do. So The guy that co-created the 1 year no beer program, Andy Ramage, he also now trains life coaches as part of Andy Ramage Training. So he messaged me about joining a course with 50 other coaches back at the start of the year. So he runs like 3 sessions a year for 3 cohorts, and it's diploma in coaching and positive psychology. And then part of that is becoming an alcohol-free performance coach. And I've loved it. It's like going back to school and learning, which has really pushed myself out my comfort zone. So it's been lots of lunchtimes, evenings and weekends, cramming it around a busy life with work and family and everything else. But it feels like my true calling, because I'm now realizing that there must be lots of other men out there like me in that midlife, struggling with their health, wanting to make some changes, whether it's stopping drinking, losing weight. The key thing about coaching is helping people change their mindset, which will then bring the lasting change. Yeah, I've just qualified, as I say, as a life coach now. And that's why I appreciate coming on today to be able to talk about that, because, as I say, hopefully I can help some other guys start to make that change as well.
Congratulations. That's a brilliant qualification to do. And clearly the diet and lifestyle has helped you, and now you're looking to help and inspire other people. Can you tell us a bit more about how people would connect with you or hear a bit more about what you're doing in that space?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alcohol Free Warrior as my handle on Instagram, and I have a website with that address as well. If you just Google me, Neil Rutherford Coaching on LinkedIn, you'll find me there. And so I offer one-on-one coaching with people who are looking to change their relationship with alcohol. But then as part of that, focusing on their mindset, exercise, nutrition, sleep. Sleep is the number one benefit now, because I sleep so well, and that's the building block for the next day and what you can achieve. And just to circle back to the start, the interesting thing about the moderation, I read a book, William Porter's Alcohol Explained, and that says 1 drink affects your sleep. So, if that's something you value highly, then that's another piece around moderation. But yeah, people can get me one-on-one coaching. I offer group coaching. I've also set up Alcohol Free Warriors, which is an online global community on WhatsApp where people can come maybe as an alternative to AA, because again, that's something, that exists and is very important for a lot of people. But maybe there's people that just want community, and maybe it isn't just coaching, but it's just offering someone something else where they can come and have a support of like-minded individuals.
For our listeners who are, either looking at plant-based diets or how they can increase that, is that something you also help with coaching if they don't have, say, any issues with alcohol, or they just want to know more about nutrition?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm plant-based warrior as well. If it's people that want to just come and talk about any life changes at all, I've covered so much so far in my training. So everything I've been doing so far has been pro bono. I'm launching my business officially on my 2-year anniversary of going alcohol-free and plant-based, which is the 24th of November. I think that might be a week ago if this recording comes out.
How wonderful, Neil. That's excellent. That's brilliant.
And the thinking behind that is that people will want to maybe talk about, Dry January and Veganuary as a starting point of the year, because as we've said before, that's the first step for a lot of people about making some changes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Do you think the appeal of the events like Dry January or Veganuary, do they actually help people make or start to form these new habits?
I think so, because again, it's building a program and some community and something that you can try with other people. It's just saying try it for a month. It's not saying, change forever. And I think it's just giving people a start. And there are some people that I know in my network that have tried it for a month and then just kept going. Or there's other people that try it for a month and then come back to it again. And then maybe, as I say, try a bit longer or try a year. And it's like myself, it's a longer process. But I think by learning from a lot of my mistakes and also my experience, that's the value I can add as a coach and sort of help people in that journey and get to their goals a bit quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like the value of community is so integral, isn't it, when you're making these big changes in life? And so it sounds like you've got a plan for the foreseeable future. What do you hope to achieve further in your own health goals on your journey?
Well, yeah, so getting to my goal weights as long as it takes, but I think I've just cut my medication in half because I had been on metformin and allopurinol for those couple of years. So my goal is to be fully off my medication, hopefully sometime next year. and obviously keeping my blood markers low. But I'm really confident in the plant-based nutrition in terms of that lifestyle medicine that's going to work for me. From there, it will be building out my health coaching business, and eventually I'll transition into this full-time, I'm sure, one day. But I'm so passionate about it. I enjoy spending all my spare time around it anyway. Yeah, I'm excited to maybe come back and check in with you guys again at some point next year, just to update you where I am on my personal health journey and how it's going with the coaching business as well.
We'd be absolutely delighted, Neil. It's so nice to hear a journey someone's, actually going through the transition and the effects that it's already had. So it's brilliant to hear. Just to give us some more sort of concrete examples, we always get to the point in the podcast where we love to talk about food and what we're eating. Would you be able to share with us what you're having for dinner tonight?
I'm very lucky that, so my wife's also tried plant-based this year, and she's also lost 3 stone as well. She loves to batch cook, and that's a big secret tip. So at the start of the week, this week, she's cooked a lovely chickpea and vegetable curry, and then sort of divided that up into boxes. And then I'll have some whole grain rice that I'll have with that, or whole wheat pasta. And then also the vegetable and bean ragu that she makes is another favourite of mine. I've already told you I like my avocado on sourdough for lunch. Another thing we haven't mentioned is I do like fasting. So that's something, I just have a coffee in the morning. I find that helps me eat less and just really savour and enjoy the 2 meals that I am having. And it's more mindful eating. And then I will obviously snack on fruit and berries.
Very nice. What about you, Claire? What are you having for dinner tonight?
Well, I haven't made it yet, but I'm getting ready. I've bought my red cabbage and some aubergines, and it's a recipe that has popped up in the Vegan Food and Living. I can't quite remember the name of it. It was something like spicy red cabbage and aubergine salad, but I've made it before, so I'll use my mandolin to finely grate the red cabbage, and then you get aubergines and you just lightly fry the slices, and then you make a dressing which is out of mirin, if you know what that is. It's like a Japanese winey, sugary, salty dressing thing. You get a bottle of that, you add some fresh ginger, some garlic, some soy sauce, and pour that at the last minute over the cabbage and the aubergine. And there's some chili in there as well. Of course, there's some, depending on how hot you like it, you can put some little red chilies in there. The thing that really sort of brings it up and gives it some punch is chopped mint and coriander.
Lovely.
Just in layers through that. And you're probably going to ask me what I'm going to have with it. I haven't decided, but, maybe some brown rice. Not sure.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. That sounds really good.
What about you, Daisy? What have you got? It's a Friday.
So I remember we were having this conversation earlier about salad, and Neil, if someone said to me, "Oh, you're having a salad for dinner tonight," I'd be like, "Well, that's not enough. I need something a bit more substantial than that."
Yeah.
But I'm working my way through this book. I don't know if you can see it. It's from the Viva charity, Everyone Can Cook Vegan. And there's a warm Moroccan salad with spicy harissa drizzle. And it's perfect because you basically oven roast the carrots, sweet potato, chickpeas, red onions. So you've got a lot of substance there with the sort of the potatoes and the chickpeas. And then you put that into the salad. So it's like a warm salad with this beautiful harissa dressing on top. So yeah, it's really filling. And if you'd said to me a few years ago, salad, I'd be like, oh, what? But it's a brilliant salad. And I'd really recommend that book as well.
Yeah, I love it. That's the one that, Neil, that I bought. I bought 2 copies of it and immediately gave them away. So then I had to buy another one, and I thought I'll buy another one.
Yeah.
So I've gone through, they're doing really well out of me, but it's only £12. So it's a little bit cheaper than your usual recipe book. And even having done this for years, I still love a recipe book. You always need those pictures and that inspiration, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm working my way through the book because every recipe's been brilliant. So yeah, thoroughly recommend it. We must put the link actually in the show notes. Well, Neil, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really lovely to hear a different perspective, hasn't it, Claire? We always have sort of, doctors or experts and dietitians, but to hear a patient journey, it's been really valuable, and I'm sure our listeners will be really inspired by you, Neil.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
we're going to get you back and we're going to focus on how well you're doing, just to give you that to-do list, how well you're doing on coming off your meds, how your weight loss is going, and how sustaining you've been, because that's the thing. I think that's what people really want to know, is they don't want the keto diet, they want that lifestyle change and how to keep that going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.